Well, I think during this program we're going to be talking to a lot of very interesting companies. I don't think anything could be more interesting and fascinating unless, of course, you might happen to be a Catholic priest about to hear the confession of Charlie Sheen. But my first guest is Mr. Tom Von Bank. He is the Vice President of Sales and Marketing of Biomedical Technology Solutions. Their stock symbol is BMTL. Tom, good to see you in person for a change.
Finally, yeah. It's nice to talk to you again.
We've had you on the phone a couple of times getting updates on the company. Why don't you tell us what Biomedical Technology Solutions does?
You know, I'd like to make it sound real sexy and leading edge technology, but basically we're in essence in the garbage business. Happens to be biomedical waste. Biomedical waste is generated by anyone who comes in contact with humans or animals, providing healthcare services, or any facility that allows the collection of biomedical waste. Typically that's the diabetic population in private venues. We have a device which is the only authorized tabletop self-contained patented system of its kind that allows that kind of garbage to be processed and disposed of right at the point of generation.
Now, of course, anybody that's been in a doctor's office or a healthcare facility, we see the red box on the wall. More about that in a moment. But basically, everything's going in there, from used hypodermic needles to swabs and stuff that's touched, human fluids, blood, whatever the case may be. This all goes in the box.
Correct.
And then this becomes, as you said, biomedical hazardous waste. You can't just throw it away. There's a whole process that goes along, doesn't it?
That's correct. Biomedical waste, really, that kind of garbage is regulated as stringently as it is because it represents the possibility of the transfer of infectious or hazardous materials. So the typical means by disposal today, dominant anyway, is by way of a garbage service, biomedical waste hauling companies.
And so for a healthcare facility, a doctor's office, this represents a fairly substantial piece of overhead, I would examine.
It is usually the least of their priorities, but it's something they have to deal with every day. So it is a capital, or not a capital, but an expense that they have to deal with so long as their doors are open. The law states clearly you have to handle your garbage specifically.
Now, you've got some things with you here. Let's take a look first at this red box, because this is the red box that we see in just about every doctor's office, every waiting room, or not waiting room, but treatment room of an emergency room at the hospital. This is what we see, and this is where everything goes in, correct?
This is the industry standard. About 80% of all of what's referred to as sharps collectors looks just about like this. All right, it's a standard industry 1 gallon. They call it a 5.4 quart. 4 quarts is usually a gallon, but that represents the fill line by which OSHA says you can't exceed. So this is what you see in most every doctor's, dentist, veterinarian, clinic, surgery center, those types of things.
Now, when this is full, they've got to take it down, they've got to seal it, and I would assume it goes into some method of storage until a collection vehicle comes by from time to time?
Correct. The actual handling, it's basically excessive handling. This is specific for sharps. There's also a lot of the more traditional, which referred to as red bag, a lot of the bloody gauzes and things like that, that end up in a red garbage bag. But when either of them is filled, there is a requirement that you secure the top or close the lid, you tie the bag. If the bag is full, you have to double bag that, tie it, you put your identification tag on it, and as you said, then they're forced to put it somewhere in their facility. I like to use simple analogies. All of us generate garbage at home. Typically the garbage is stored before your garbage guy comes in your garage. Usually it's a week at a time.
Of course.
Well, there's a lot of odors that can generate over the course of that week. If you can imagine, most facilities will store their biomedical waste on site for a minimum of a month at a time.
Wow.
Well, the airborne hazards that are being generated, not the most friendly or healthy environment. Typically, once then it's been stored, they have to coordinate the handoff to the garbage service.
Of course.
Okay, if they forget it, typically garbage companies like to charge more for that. Once it's picked up, in essence, the facility gives up the control. They're relying on a third party to do what their legal liability requires them to do. And then it's either incinerated or landfilled. And once that's completed, there's a document that's required to be sent back by the hauler to the facility, which is the proof of proper destruction. It's usually referred to as a manifest, comes over the fax machine.
Now, your product, the Demolyzer 2, you have a similar canister. It's not plastic, it's a different color. Why don't we take a look at one of those?
The reason why ours is not a plastic made out of a grade A metal or a tin, it's the same size as the industry standard, it's a 1 gallon, is because our product uses a very basic technology called dry heat.
Right.
And to put that in simplistic terms, it's the same as your oven in your kitchen. All right. So because our system uses heat, our collection devices withstand the heat process. Everything on the inside that exceeds the state requirements, rendering it harmless, you can throw it away as common trash.
Okay, so basically everything that went in the red box can now go into your box. Your box is on the wall just like everybody else's. And once it's full, what happens?
Well, much like today, it has to be secured. So what I did is I grabbed a sharps collector and I put our snapping lid system on.
Okay.
So instead of what happens today, which means you put it in the boxes or the bags, you double bag, you put it in the storage, you drag it out when the hauler comes. Instead of doing all of that, you simply walk it over to our machine. It's about the size of an office desktop printer. You place it on the inside. If you can run your toaster, you can run our machine. You're going to press 2 buttons. It's completely automated. When the process is completed, it exceeds again the criteria, rendering it harmless. You can take this now harmless collector and discard it as common trash.
Now that's the part that I am so blown away when I think about your company and I think about your technology. We took something that was biomedical hazardous waste. It had to be stored in a certain way, treated a certain way, picked up by a certain collector. It's all government regulated. To your new device turns it into common trash that you just throw it out every Tuesday when they come pick it up in the dumpster.
Pretty close. Again, the requirement is to make it sterile.
Right.
All right. The difference between biomedical waste being hazardous and sterile waste, obviously sterile is harmless. However, when it comes to syringes, needles, before those can be discarded as common trash, they not only have to be sterile, they also have to be referred to as unrecognizable and non-reusable.
Okay.
So the technology applying heat sterilizes fairly quickly, and then it creates the ability for that unrecognizable, non-reusable outcome. And I actually brought, that is about 200 medical syringes.
That is amazing.
Now I've pulled that from one of our collectors.
Okay.
Now customers never see that because of our locking lid system, obviously metal, but I thought you'd find that interesting.
That is very interesting because, I mean, like you said, this was dangerous biomedical waste that we wouldn't want to touch because of the risk of infection, transfusion, that kind of thing. And this is just a white brick that is just simple household common trash.
That's common trash. It's nothing but plastic. Embedded with that is the needles. It is harmless.
That is amazing, just amazing. Now let's talk a little bit more about the company. I understand that your device has been getting a lot of attention overseas. Tell us about that.
Correct. Well, recently, the last time you and I spoke, we had just signed an agreement, a letter of intent with a group called JADA Technologies. Their focus initially is on Nigeria. For those of your viewers who don't know, Nigeria is about half the size of the United States. In that state alone, in Africa, it represents about 150 million in population. They've notified us of their first order that is pending. We should be receiving that shortly. They have expansion plans all in around the African nation. We have now coordinated an agreement with Russia that has come up over the last couple of weeks. In addition to that, Brazil and Ecuador. So the international market represents 4 and 5 times greater the application of the United States, and our product has over 1 million applications in the U.S. alone, so very exciting.
Company's Biomedical Technology Solutions, their stock symbols BMTL. Now, let's talk, I think the last time you and I spoke, was probably about 5 or 6 weeks ago, the telephone interview. Again, I'm very glad to have you here face to face. You've got some management changes coming up that have been already implemented, about to announce. What can you tell us about that?
Well, I think without getting too far ahead of myself, in the very near distant future, probably in the next 2 to 3 weeks, there's going to be some major announcements about management, including strategies as far as the company's new direction. Real no rocket science. It's basic, in my opinion, when it comes to the awareness campaign being one. We're starting to get a very, very active, positive response from our current distribution channels here in the United States. Understanding that water of navigation when it comes to dealing with national distributors, it's not easy. Typically that takes anywhere from 2 to 3 and upwards of 6, 7, 8 years. We've been at it now a little over 2 to 3 years. That's starting to develop a lot of positive sales response. So there's going to be a lot of announcements upcoming in the very, very near future.
You know, I would have to think, I mean, I know how I feel about things in my industry, but I would think that in the healthcare industry, if there's ever a point or an opportunity to eliminate some kind of government regulation or intervention, that becomes part of the no-brainer process.
It does, and part of when we present our product, we really focus on 4 areas of benefit. Number 1 being safety. Our product, obviously, we touched a little bit about the elimination of the storage. It's nice. You reduce excess handling. It reduces the elevation or the risk exposure. We talk about the simplicity. Documentation and the collection of that document is a hassle. Our system comes with it, a printer that provides the documentation immediately after a process. It stores it as backup, so it's always there, so it simplifies all of that. We talk about the security of our product, really the legal liability. You don't hand off your garbage to someone else relying on them. You control it, most importantly at the point of patient care. The security on our environment, a much greener alternative because we eliminate the truck leaving its carbon footprint. Some 20,000 crisscross our roads every day leaving their carbon footprint. Still, the majority of biomedical waste is incinerated, the releasing of the dioxins. I don't know if people believe in the global warming effect, obviously not the best thing to our environment. We eliminate both of those, so we're a greener alternative. And the bottom line is we can save tens to hundreds of thousands of dollars over the lifespan of our product. So yeah, all in all, no-brainer is a good way to put it.
Now, from a company revenue standpoint, I'm sure you're either selling or leasing the Demolyzer 2. Then, of course, you have revenue that comes from the sale of the parts, the canisters. Is that basically how it works?
It does. The only authorized, approved collection system that goes in our machine, the Sharps collectors and red bag collectors that I showed you earlier. We've introduced a new rental program allowing the access to either the purchase, whether it's by straight purchase or a lease. Our new rental program is going to provide us a vehicle to accommodate lower cost generators today. So all in all, we're going to have a pretty good armament of accessibility for customers who are interested in bringing the Demolyzer in.
Once again, Biomedical Technology Solutions, BMTL. Tom, why is this a good time right now for folks to take a closer look at your company?
Well, I mean, if I look at the investment community, and I'm not an analyst by any means, I'm not a stockbroker, I think they generally look at opportunity, and they do their due diligence, and they make their decisions based on the opportunity. Today, if you look at the garbage industry, pretty strong market, being the only one in that environment with a product that does what ours does, the upside with little success, and obviously our plans are a great success, it's going to make a huge impact in the bottom line of our company and subsequently the value of our company where the stock is concerned.
Well, Tom, we've been watching your company, I guess, for about the last 3 or 4 months. It's been fascinating to watch your progress during that period of time. I think it's going to be a lot more exciting over the next 3 or 4 months. We look forward to more updates from you. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.